What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Robert. I'm a 22-year-old rental arbitrage Airbnb host. This is my 9th rental arbitrage unit. And yes, you heard me correctly. There's 9 units currently listed and advertised on short-term rental platforms. In this video, I will be sharing 5 mistakes that I made on my own back, on my own skin, that I don't ever want to see you making. You watching this video, trying to do what I'm doing. I will be sharing with you 5 things that I did that I wish I could go back and reverse and change moving forward. So stay tuned for this video. It's going to kind of go through some of these things that I've experienced that have been very detrimental to my business and something that I really think everyone should be very cautious and very aware about. Before we get into those 5 things though, this is my 9th Airbnb unit and this is in Kansas City, Missouri. Behind me here you can see the beautifully designed interior design and the throw pillow, the accents, that stuff on the couch. There's a cool piece of artwork hanging up right behind me here that I'm really fond of. This property is live. I blocked off the next few nights because I am currently living in this property, but this property is live and we've already had 2 bookings. Big success, massive success here in KC. Just so you know what I've been up to since I haven't been uploading very consistently. First week of February, I was out in Los Angeles. I went and I filmed a video with Shelby Church, which I uploaded the other day that you guys saw. And then I went to Big Sur, San Francisco, had a great time there. And from there, the second I got back to Springfield, I got in my car and headed straight to Kansas City. Not to mention, I was in Chicago at a keynote event. I spoke alongside some very amazing individuals, and you all know who I'm talking about here. I spoke alongside Sean. We got to meet. For now, let's get to the 5 things, the 5 mistakes that I made while scaling that almost put me out of business. And I'm gonna go through these right now. The first one was violating Airbnb's terms of service. Now I'm coming clean to you all here. I'm sharing this experience with you. I didn't share it when it happened in real time because I was too overwhelmed with what was actually going on to actually process it and put it on YouTube. I was actually focused on finding the solution. So violating Airbnb's terms of service, what does that mean? Violating Airbnb's terms of service can result in a ban or a shadow ban, and somebody manually removed my listings from being bookable on Airbnb, and this happened without my knowing. So we got our listings shadow banned, for lack of better words, and 3 or 4 days later, we're not getting any bookings. I'm looking at the calendar, I'm wondering what's going on here. Like, this isn't very common. I've never gone so many days without being booked, and it was very unusual. And then like 6 days after we kind of stopped seeing any engagement on the units, Airbnb decides to reach out and they said that, hey, you violated our terms of service with the host referral program. So if you guys are aware, there's like this refer a host program where you can send a link, and this link essentially will give you like $100 or $120 per referral. I had no idea that sending it to myself would be a big deal. So I opened up a second Airbnb account, and this definitely ended up being something I wish I could go back and redo, but I learned from the experience, and now I know that being on Airbnb alone and having them control your entire business is very risky, and there's a lot of downsides that come with that. Airbnb shadow banned all of our listings on multiple accounts, 2 accounts to be exact, and these accounts bled, and we had our first losing month on Airbnb because of a simple technical error. You know, this whole time I've been on here telling you I've had no losing months. Well, the first month of the year, January 2020, I literally almost lost everything. The business wasn't looking very good at all. The P&L was terrible. Luckily, we got live towards the last week of the month, and we were able to mitigate some of that damage and reduce the amount that we were currently going to spend on expenditures. But with that being said, that's something that I wish I would have never done, and that was a huge mistake, huge red flag, and I would have never experienced that had I not started scaling and then started looking at other options on how to grow the business. So I once got a comment previously on one of my videos. I was going through some mistakes that I made starting my business, and someone was saying, you're not ready to start a business if you're making these stupid mistakes. Well, in my experience, I'm learning from these, and it's only a true failure if you don't learn from it and if you don't grow from it. So with that being said, that's number one. I think just be very cautious with what you're doing as a host. Make sure you're being compliant with Airbnb, because they do have the control to shadow ban you. And I'm glad I experienced this with under 10 listings, because if we're like at, let's say there's like 30 listings or 40 listings on the line, and then Airbnb decides to shadow ban them for whatever reason, that's going to be a huge problem, a huge issue that would cost a lot more money than what it costs. The second mistake that I made scaling was not being cost efficient with furnishing the properties. So many of you know I recently made a video talking about how much it cost me to furnish a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, and the cost was around $5,600 for that unit. Well, I went kind of crazy with purchases, and I think $5,000 for what we're doing is way too high of a price point. And looking back on what's kind of developed in the past couple of weeks here, I don't know if making that $5,000 unit acquisition decision was ultimately going to be the best thing for everything moving forward. Going back, I would have been more cost conscious, and I definitely wasn't. I was just saying like, oh, I need this, I'm going to buy. I wasn't really price matching or comparing the price. I ordered everything on Amazon. You guys saw that video. That ended up costing me a lot more than I anticipated, and therefore I would have gone back and redone that in a way that was more cost efficient and cost effective for the business, and just like the calculating of numbers, that type of thing. So for those of you who are curious, $5,600 or $5,400, that's a really high price point. The apartment I'm currently sitting in was furnished for $2,500, a 1-bedroom apartment. That right there is more realistic and more up my alleyway of what I think can be attained in this business model if you do it the right way. Secondhand furniture, Craigslist, Facebook Market, that kind of thing, it does take a little bit more time. And if you compare it to purchasing stuff on Amazon, which comes straight to your door, you're spending a lot more time assembling that furniture than you are going and picking something up off of Craigslist, if that makes sense. So there's my second mistake, not being very cost conscious on the approach and just splurging and going through and just saying like, I need this, I'm gonna buy it just for the purpose of filling the need without really being logical about it. So 2 mistakes in the bag. The third mistake that I made scaling was not being completely ready when I went live. And I know a lot of hosts do this, they'll go live before everything is completely ready just so they can start making that money, and so they can start looking towards paying down the expenditures that come with this business model. And what I mean by this, there were certain things that I was missing, very little things like cutting boards, hand soap, that type of stuff in some of my units. And this ended up not really bringing a bad review in, but the guests had requests while they, the first guests stayed in these properties. They're like, hey, we need a cutting board. Hey, we need hand soap, that type of thing. And so I was running back and forth, stressed out. If any of you are hosts, you currently know that if a guest needs something, you want to provide it right away, and you want to provide the best hospitality. And therefore, I wasn't really that prepared to launch all of these properties at once, but I was also under the time crunch. I needed to get them up. And going back on it, I definitely think just being very calculated, making sure you have everything done is very important. Now, I know this is harder when you have 3 units that you're going in with, or multiple units that you're scaling with, and making sure everything is done for, and all these properties can take more time and energy, but it's necessary to be very calculated with it and make sure you know what you're getting into. And I think if you do that, you'll be good to go. The fourth thing that I'm going to mention here is when scaling, when you have multiple properties, you want to get into being on different marketing channels as soon as possible. Now, I know this one is not necessary. I know Sean from Airbnb Automated scaled from 0 to 100 with Airbnb as his main marketing channel, and it's possible and it's doable that way. But I think learning the task and learning the challenge of managing multiple calendar integrations at once will benefit you if you start off doing this early on. And Airbnb is great, but get on other platforms as well. Get used to that calendar integration, and don't be afraid of double bookings. Do it right and you won't have to experience double bookings. That's all I can say. This is something that you want to learn early on, and the reason being is, let's say you start scaling and you acquire multiple units, you're building your Airbnb empire, and you get to 10 units, and then you get to 15 units, and so on and so forth. You get to 50 units. and you've only marketed yourself on Airbnb, well, when you decide, hey, I want to go to HomeAway and market myself on HomeAway, you have to go through and relist all of these 50 units, which is going to take you a lot of time if you're not going to delegate or outsource that task. Now, doing this from the beginning, doing this from scratch, how I have, you don't really have the resources to go out and pay somebody to sit there for multiple hours and set up these accounts. And personally, I want to make sure that I'm doing them right. So if I'm setting up an account, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything right and I see everything that's being done, and I can go through and work out all the little points that need to be addressed, versus giving it to somebody else and not knowing their work ethic, not knowing if they're going to do a great job. And another thing is, back to the calendar integrations, when you do set up these multiple accounts, making sure that iCalSync is perfected is so important. I can't stress this enough. But I think doing it simultaneously, it makes more sense to me, even though it is more challenging of a task. Syncing your calendars and being on multiple platforms simultaneously from day one, from one unit forward, moving forward, is going to be the most beneficial thing for you. It definitely will increase your revenue, and it'll fill a gap and definitely help you accelerate your growth and help you achieve the level of independence, income automation, income financial freedom, whatever it is that you're after. It'll definitely help you achieve that faster. And this brings me to the last thing and the last mistake that I made while getting into this business, is not scaling quick enough. And I think a lot of us can look back on certain things that we did in life, that we didn't do in life, and we can regret them and wish we would have done them this way or that way. Hindsight is 20/20. There's a great saying. You're looking back, you always see the bigger picture. You always see what you could have done. And looking back on my year of 2019, I definitely think I could have been more proactive in acquiring units and doing something rather than just being comfortable with one and then two by the end of the year. Looking at it now, it's just that initial step of scaling that's the hardest part. But once you get through that, once you actually get yourself established with multiple leases, you realize that all there is to it is just doing it over and over again and systemizing things and building these rules that you have to stick to and staying consistent with them. This is all stuff that I've learned in the past few months while scaling. And yeah, that's probably the biggest mistake that I made, was not scaling quick enough. And I say this because other people are beating me to it, and there's other people doing this and they're catching on and they're doing this well. And you know what? That's great for them, but then again, that's market share that I could be taking for myself. And another thing I want to say is, I've realized that my success is mainly attributed to me being the first one to the scene. In Springfield, Missouri, I was definitely the first one to the door pitching these landlords and these homeowners and these apartment complexes about rental arbitrage. Nobody came there and did it before me. And this honestly was a massive advantage for me, seeing everything that has played out and everything that's happened. Looking back, me being the first one to the door gives me such an advantage, because now I can introduce this idea and sell my belief and what I think is going to work to this individual, versus somebody else coming and maybe not doing as great of a job, or maybe not being as diligent as I was in the process, and burning that bridge. I've noticed this too. I'm in Kansas City, and I've approached some complexes, I've approached some people who don't want anything to do with it because they've either been burnt by it in the past by somebody who wasn't professional or somebody who wasn't doing a great job, or they have been pitched on it so many times that they're like, I don't want to hear it. Not scaling quick enough was definitely my biggest mistake, and I hope you note these down and take serious consideration into what I just shared with you. I'm sharing this through my experience as what I've experienced as a rental arbitrage Airbnb host, and take them with a grain of salt. You may agree, you may not agree, you may think that my mistakes are stupid, but ultimately I think building something off of other people's mistakes is wise. And I've spent a lot of time and energy and resources dealing with these and working out the problems and finding solutions for these things that you shouldn't have to, now that you've heard me go over this video with you. Once again, thank you for staying tuned. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to leave a like. I will do a tour of this property probably tomorrow. I'll film the video and have it uploaded Friday. And if you have not yet, be sure to check out the link down below and find STR Accelerator. There's a 50% off promo code in my link, and just because you watch this video, you get that 50% off. Go check it out. This is the most in-depth, comprehensive Airbnb course that exists I encourage any of you who need that extra commitment to making this happen, just go check it out. I go through the systems, I go through the protocols. It's all PowerPoint presentations as well. I go through everything that I did to get to where I'm at. And just take that and look it over, just look at the curriculum. You'll see that there's no skimping on any information. I recently have had people reach out to me and say that they've taken Brian Page's course and they've taken Ty Lopez's course, and they're not covering critical points and critical things like regulations, and they're kind of vanilla, they're kind of bland. So with that being said, if you want a really great rental arbitrage Airbnb product, then go ahead and check that out down below. And I also do a one-on-one mentorship where I personally help you and find properties for you, connect you to the landlord, do the market research for you. I do a bunch of in-depth stuff that takes a lot of my time, and you know, I have that option for you as well if you want that, and if you're looking for that. So be sure to check that out down below, and I will see you in the next video.